Well, we're wrapping up the first day here of LCS Spring 2020. I'm joined right now by Jatt with coverage brought to you by Alienware to talk a little bit about the new world of the LCS broadcast. So didn't have to worry about Friday last night, not on the Monday broadcast, so there's nothing to talk about with you. No, but what's it like been like behind the scenes? Because clearly I'm sure you guys have to start figuring out, like, how do you manage telling a story, at least for the LCS, across 3 days instead of 2?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun to explore what it's like only having 8 of the 10 LCS teams play on a day and then having 4 of the LCS teams play on Monday. Something I'm looking forward to is having league content on Monday, because for the past half decade that's been this dark, nebulous day.
There's been some league content on Mondays.
I can't think of
Really?
like Twitter, like Reddit.
There's a great show.
Hotline League, maybe,
Yes.
maybe. But you do that on other days. And anyway,
Sometimes we move it. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes you move it. Having consistent content on Monday will be cool, I think, but we're going to have to see how that works, because normally Monday, Tuesday was the off day for a lot of casters, but now it's like shifting around schedules depending on what team you're on, like what are your weekends going to be. Esports in a lot of ways has no weekends, but at least in the meantime, right now, like my schedule is going to be Wednesday, Thursday is a weekend, and then like Tuesday is a planning and content day, but we'll see because we haven't actually done it before.
I got very confused because normally I enjoy being at home on Thursdays and Fridays. I have the whole place to myself. And then I heard Kobe in the other room yelling about the game that he was playing. It was very inconvenient for me. I liked it more before whenever he was home on Mondays.
Yeah, but now on Mondays and Tuesdays, you can be home. On
I have to work.
On Tuesdays?
Yeah, I guess on Tuesdays.
Okay,
yeah.
it's
Unless we have to move. We're trying to figure out if we have to move Hotline League to Tuesdays, and then in which case I might. Whatever. Anyway, back to how this is inconveniencing me. So it is interesting for you guys. I just, from a logistics perspective, figuring it out.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's we'll see how it goes, because that's the plan, is to have Wednesday, Thursdays an off day. But if I have a guest or something I really want to talk about on the podcast. Yeah. The Josh Leisman Experience, or JLXP. Yes. I know some people are huge fans of that name, but then I'll do something on Wednesday or Thursday and like steal the time from elsewhere. We'll see what happens.
You can understand how the name would be confusing because you go by Jatt.
Yeah, I mean, you go by Travis.
Yes.
But your name is.
Okay, don't reveal that. We need to censor that. I need this censored in the interview. Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised you know that. Like, very few people know that. I don't know how you found that out, but whatever. Anyway, but you publicly you go by Jatt, so why would you name a podcast after your legal name?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Joshua Jatt Leisman. I like the name JLXP. I can see why people would want Jatt to be prominent in the podcast, but I feel like it's fine. Okay. Just a name I wanted to pick.
So now tell me, what crazy shit went down behind the scenes to get you out of the dive and into your own podcast?
So I'm going to be a guest on the dive.
Okay.
If you want drama, it's just all Mark Z.
Okay.
Like, he just infiltrated and pushed me out. Apparently, I'm supposed to take his place on Hotline League. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll see how that works.
I haven't received that yet. I'm hoping your day rate isn't much more than his, because that show is on a shoestring budget, and anything more is going to break that.
Yeah, but more seriously, it's more about trying to create as much diversified content as possible. Like, ESPN has more than one football show, right? And I think we can have more than one league podcast, and podcasts can be very personality driven. So I love the dive. Like, I started it with those guys. It's a great product. It's grown a lot. But I also want to try and grow different products. And even in the season previews, there's a lot of people that I was able to bring on that wouldn't have necessarily worked on the dive. And I want that to be a thing going forward. It helps me potentially grow. Hopefully it helps our overall content grow, because I think the dive is still really good with or without me. So I kind of wanted to try this new thing as well and then be a guest on the dive. Yeah.
I think it's great that you decided to go with a podcast or like talk show style thing, because there's not very many of those. I'm glad you're going with diversity of content, because we have none of those in the league space right now.
Yeah, if only a team would make like a documentary or something, then we'd really be able to see what goes on behind the scenes.
That could be your second project, just partnering with a team to release a documentary showing behind the scenes. If I can get more people sitting in the back of shuttles on the way to LCS, looking at their phones, doing nothing, that would be great for me.
Yeah, I can't wait until that product exists.
Well, I have a funny story for you about the podcast thing, because I don't know if you saw this, but I think Sideshow, maybe some of the people over in the Overwatch League, did a thing where they recorded all in one day like little 10-minute discussions about every single one of the teams, and then they release them over a period of time. I saw this and I was like, this is brilliant. I'm going to steal this format during right before it. And I was about to ask Mark to do this with me, and then he was like, I'm busy this day because I have to go with Jatt. He's having everybody do single conversations about each of the teams previewing, and I was like, well, fuck, there goes that idea. So
the thing is, you could have still done it, right? That's I think a blocker that a lot of people can get past in esports is two people can talk about the same thing and it's fine. Yeah. There were, like when Kawhi Leonard got traded in the offseason, I listened to like 6 different podcasts all talking about exactly the same thing and devoured all of them. So whenever there's a hot topic, like, or preseason, like just make it.
I think the only problem in this specific situation is we would have been releasing the same idea at the exact same time, and it would have looked very. And nobody would have been
suspicious.
Nobody would have been like Jatt copied Travis. It definitely would have gone in the opposite direction for me. What do you think of all the teams this year?
I think early season looked like early season. I thought that was the case actually for a lot of LEC, even watching that. Like Origin looked good, G2 looked okay with their role swap. That's like a whole other topic that I might even talk about on the podcast at some point. I think they're doing it to stay like interested in the game. But overall, like day one was what it was. I thought there was a lot of sloppy play. Biggest loser, probably COG. Biggest winner, probably FlyQuest. But aside from that, I mean, C9 did well, but you're always going to put like an asterisk next to that win because they were playing against Schernfire, who've been practicing with the team for a couple of days, whereas C9 had done a month-long Korean boot camp. So I think C9 will start off the season hot. We actually haven't seen TSM yet, but I think they'll start off hot as well because it looks like a few teams are entering the season in mid-season form, and a few teams are still kind of putting it together.
I want to apologize for everybody who we should have gotten a seizure warning. This screen is usually slower at changing, but now it's very flashy, and so this is, I'm sure everybody watching this. Anyway, I wanted to ask you about Immortals, though, because we just watched them. They did not look super great, and then there was a discussion immediately in the media room that's like, is Immortals maybe the worst team right now? I'm kind of curious what your take is.
I mean, a lot of people had the bottom 3 in their power rankings as Golden Guardians, Immortals, and then FlyQuest. The overreaction would be yes, in the fact that they were the worst team today. But you're going to have to wait and see what happened. But I also know Zabutin was on Summoning Insight. He talked a lot about how they had an issue getting people in-house and practicing. Like Ike was on stage today, but they did so many scrims with their academy mid laner. On top of it, already like so many things that team is going to be ironing out throughout the split. So speaking from their perspective, I'm sure they're going to say give it time, but today they look bad.
Trying to think if there's anything else. Anything that in particular you're excited about this? Because I will say, today felt new in a lot of different ways, and the broadcast in particular felt a little bit more revamped. Like I think some of the biggest changes we've seen in like the past 2 years.
Yeah, I think we got some new graphics. I'm really excited to have Prawley on board. I think the shoulder content around the LCS is also going to be sharper this year. So I'm just really looking forward to the year of being just like fresh start, get those new teams in there, and just kind of see where we're going.
Anything you want to say to all the fans out there? You can once more plug your podcast for the 5th time in this interview.
I'm going to continue to plug my podcast, JLXP, but subscribe on like Spotify or something because it is a podcast. I'm still a little surprised how many people watch podcasts on YouTube and how many people have been like, the white along the edge of the border on the YouTube video? They're like, can you change that? So because apparently it's like just a little not symmetrical. So it's like, that box that bounces around a TV and you want it to hit the corner? It's like that or something. But I'm also wondering, like, is it not a second screen experience? Like, who's sitting there watching the box? If you do, that's totally fine. I'm going to pass that note along and try and make it more appealing to stare at. But anyway, please listen to the podcast. I'm going to be trying to do at least one a week, possibly 2 or 3 if there's something extra spicy. Like, I'm going to pump them out because it's just a conversation. And if you want to listen to them, do it. If you don't. It's not that big a deal.
Great. I'm glad there's even more talk show content coming out in LCS now. And then I had to deal with that shit, and then I had to deal with Dash being like, look at all the beautiful shots of me assembling the state of the league lineup right now, and I was very jealous.
You've had like a rough week. Yeah.
You have no idea.
You had a lot of really good media interviews as well. Like I like
the asset day stuff.
Yeah, like the multi-camera setups. Like it felt really cool.
I felt really. Dave Stewart was publicly mocking me on Twitter. It was bad after like the Reddit flame thread last year because I thought my Acid Day interviews were kind of shitty because I was really sick during all 3 of those days. So at one point in time, Dave's like, I'm impressed Travis has mastered the art of falling asleep while asking a question. And I'm like, I was sick, you jerk.
Yeah.
Executive producer of the LCS, picking on poor little Travis Gafford, you know?
I also feel like this is becoming a podcast. Like it's people click on it, they're thinking, hey, it's Travis Gafford interview, but really we're doing a 1 microphone podcast instead of a 2 microphone podcast.
This is a podcast about podcasts. Actually, we've entered. That's how I differentiate myself now. It's like I just talk about all the other content now. You just watch my thing. You never have to watch anybody else's. Anyway, thanks so much for the interview.
Thanks.
For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching that interview. It's so good to be back at the LCS, and I'm really happy to be making content for all of you guys again. It's been a bit. It's been a bit for sure, and so I'm happy to be watching these games. Either way, I want to thank Alienware for sponsoring our coverage. Really appreciate everything that they do. They've got a bunch of cool stuff coming up over the course of this year. I know they've told me, I can't tell you too much, but stuff that they're going to be doing to try to support League esports fans even better than they did last year. So stay tuned for all that. There's a link in the video description, alienware.com/Travis. Check them out. That really helps me out. And be sure to subscribe to the channel because we're trying to get to 200K soon. So hopefully that ends up happening soon.